This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so in last session, we completed half of our agenda, where basically we covered the introduction chapter, data model chapter, process model, and UI. Okay. Now, before I move to the next chapter, I would like to talk about a few interview questions. At least so far, whatever we covered, what kind of questions you may receive uh, in interview, or rather, it could be internal or external, so it doesn't matter. So I thought to talk about whatever we have covered. So it will be kind of a revision we will have. Okay. So let's start. So the first question. Now, first thing is, in last few years, if you follow, uh, the way of doing the interview is completely different. Uh, Now, nobody is going to ask you the direct question. Rather, they will give you the scenarios. Rather, they will create the question based on the work you have uh, present in front of them. Let's say you said that I have done this, that, and based on your past activity, they will ask some question, and you need to accordingly answer them. So eventually, you have to be very clear about uh, you know, uh, your activity which you are going to focus during the interview. So you may get some questions from that itself. Anyway, so let's start. First is what are the major elements of SAP MDG as governance framework? Rather, I would say that the question could be like in MDG governance framework, uh, what are the activities you have done in order to perform the governance activity? Means what kind of activity you basically carried in MDG. So you can say that the major element in SAP MDG are few things. One is reusability of the data. We can reuse the data. Second thing, data duplicate check. So the kind of a technique we use for the data duplication check, it's quite advanced here. Third thing, that is the workflow framework. In MDG, the kind of workflow which we use, mainly the rule-based workflow, which is a combination of BRF plus and the workflow, it's quite unique and it's quite advanced. It is much, much advanced than the simple workflow concept. And by using that rule-based workflow, we can address the complex framework in a very simple manner. So that is one of the area. Next is the clump. Uh, Next is, you can say, the mm, uh, duplicate check, reusability, rule-based workflow, and then you can say replication. In MDG, we use basically for replication two things. One is BRF, which is data replication framework, and another one is the SOA manager. Okay, mainly SOA manager used for supplier and uh, mm, finance, and DRF used for mainly material and customer. Also, you can use SOA manager, and DRF also you can use for suppliers, customers. finance you can't. Finance you have to go with SOA manager. So these are all things you have in replication, which makes your replication in a very advanced level. Okay, so that is one of the things you can say. And then mass processing and consolidation. So by using MDG, mass processing and consolidation, what is consolidation? So let's say uh, um, more than one number of master data I want to create, then it is a consolidation. And mass processing is nothing but the existing record I have, more than one number of existing record I want to update. That is mass processing. Okay. Anyway, so these are all things we have in a forthcoming chapters. So these are all major element uh, we have in MDG governance framework, and that really uh, separate MDG from the different module. So this is the uh, right answer, I would say, to to this question. Next is, please explain the different domains of master data. We know that we have a different domain. Rather, I would say the question will come, what are those domains you have worked in MDG? So it's like you can say material, customer, supplier, finance. These are all the major domains. Okay. Uh, Difference between the flex mode and reuse mode. Now, they will never ask you direct question about flex mode, what is flex mode and what is reuse mode. Okay. Rather, they will ask you that have you ever added any custom field in MDG? You will say yes. Okay. What are the procedure I need to follow? Okay. So let's go back to the discussion sheet. So it will be kind of a recap. So whenever I will add one custom field in MDG, I will have two options. One is reuse mode. Another one is the flex mode. Now, when I will use reuse mode, if the custom field which I am adding in MDG, that is also going to add in respective ECC tables. That means in MDG data model also I need to add that field as well as the respective ECC table. Like if it is a material, then Mara table. If it is a, customer, then KNA1 or KNB1. These are all tables. Or supplier, then the supplier tables. Okay. Then if that is the case, now how I will come to know that whether it will require means the data value will float to the respective ECC table. That information I need to gather from customer. Okay. Now next thing is the flex mode. Flex mode means only I need to add the field in the data model, and that field value is not necessary to present in the respective ECC table. It will be only required in MDG framework. Then now, why it is required? If the ultimately the data is not going to the table, then what is the use of it? The use is sometimes what happens, some fields mm, uh, having the behavior in the framework as a catalytic agent. Okay, based on that particular field, probably the other field will get influenced or derived or validate. Something will happen. So in such kind of cases, in such kind of situations, you have to use the flex format or the flex mode. Okay. Then they will might ask, do you know the configurations? Can you please talk about the configuration, at least whatever you remember? So it's a very easy. You just need to say that first is a adding the custom field in the respective data model. If it is material, then data model. If it is supplier, then BP data model. If it is a customer, then also BP data model. If it is a finance, then finance data model. Okay. And then you need to activate that particular data model with necessary, add, if it is just adding attribute, then just add the attribute to the respective entity types. Or if it is creating a new entity type, that also you can create. And ultimately, you need to save and activate the data model. That is the first step. Second step will be add that particular field also in the Mara table. Sorry, not Mara table, like any ECC table, the respective ECC table, not any ECC table, rather respective ECC table. If it is a material, then Mara table. If it is uh, supplier, then the supplier table like LFA1, LFB1, LFM1, whatever it is. Okay. And then activate it. Next is step number 3, which is add that particular field in the table T130F. Now, what is going to the use of this table? If we don't enter the value in the T130F, because T130F is actually the table, and this table having the table view. In that view, we need to make our field available. If we will not make it available, then the respective what it called, the field reference group will not be updated for that particular field. So that we need to do. Okay. Once this is done, then the next step is uh, generate data model specific structure. So basically in data model, we have a generate data model specific structure where we have a several structures for UI, for data validation, for SMT mapping, for search activity, etc. So those structures needs to be also generated. The moment you generate those structures, the custom field which you are trying to update, that is going to be available in those structures. And then apart from that, you need to also extend some more structure. So the first structure, what you see, that is something which is the backend table of ECC. If you are using Mara, then it will be the same name, just a Mara. Similarly, there will be, if you follow the document which I have given or the available in Drive for supplier and customer reuse mode, you can get the respective structure for the supplier or customer, etc. Okay. So those structures, this structure will automatically updated the moment you update the backend ECC table, okay, respective ECC table. But there are two more structures which needs to be appended. One is for the SMT mapping, another one is for the field mapping. Okay, UI field properties. And then next is the SMT mapping. So what is the use of this SMT mapping? So basically there we map source and target. Okay, we map source and target. So we have basically two type of mapping, which is 2PP and 2STA. Similarly, if you go by the document for customer, supplier, etc., you can find, even for finance also, you can find the respective mapping name for that. So then, or you just in SMT mapping screen, if you just put a star and just give MDG, BS, BP, something like that, you will see related to BP details. Similar for customer as well. So then you need to map the field. Map for what? Map for the custom field which we added, that we need to map with this SMT mapping between the source and the target. So basically that in the target system, Let's say my target system is ECC system. So in ECC system, that field is uh, named as what? It could be in my system, it could be, let's say ZZ test. This is MDG system field name, and the target ECC system field name is, let's say, ZZZ, 4 Zs and tests. Then we need to map accordingly as a source and target. Okay. Otherwise, system will not able to replicate the data to ECC, right? So the replication will get failed because this field value, when will land to ECC, it will not identify that for which field I need to go and set. So that's what this SMT mapping is important. And then finally, you activate the data model. So this is the process for reuse mode. Yes, there are some structures for CVI as well. Okay, but this is the more or less basic structures for reuse mode. Similarly, for flex mode is pretty straightforward. Like just add the field in the data model, then activate the data model, then generate the structure, and only extend the structure for UI. Nothing else you need to do over here. And then finally activate the data model. Okay. So this is the difference between flex mode and reuse mode. Remember, this question is must. Okay, this question is must. It will not say directly. Again, I repeat, there will be no direct question like what is flex mode and reuse mode, or do you know what is flex mode configuration or reuse mode configuration. Rather, the question will be whether in your past experience have you ever add any custom field in the data model or MDG framework, and if yes, then can you talk about that configuration? So such kind of question you can expect. Next is explain about the business process which you have worked. So here basically you need to tell the whole story starting from whatever you understood about MDG. So you can say first if I will start with data model, go by chapter wise. Then it will, the person who is taking the interview, uh, he will understand that you have a certain amount of understanding about MDG framework. So presentation is everything for this question. So I would say you should start with data model. You should say that in data model I worked with several activities like adding the custom fields and adding the custom entity types, then its relative configuration like reuse mode, flex mode, etc. Maintain the CVI accordingly if it is a matter of customer or supplier, and then also maintain like some SMT mapping, etc., to maintain the source and target data mapping, and then coming to the process model. So you have to be very brief on that. Okay, and if the interviewer is interested to know more, he will stop you and he will ask you some counter question. Let them stop, but you should be very brief about that. Then second thing is process model. Process model, you can say that in process model, mainly I deal with the different processes like create, change, mark for deletion, block unblock, mass processing, initial data load, etc. So we create a different change request type, and then we define those change request types. And then we also define some priorities and everything. And with that, we basically maintain the process model. Then coming to the UI. So UI, you can say that whatever the custom field majorly we have in our scenario or we had in our scenario that we have added in UI. So mainly they can ask you which UI you use. You can say if you are comfortable with the Fiori, you can talk about Fiori. If you are not comfortable Fiori, don't try to impress the interviewer because they will definitely ask you some question from Fiori. Okay, and that will trap you. So even though I would say keep your profile low, that's much better. So you can say that yes, I have worked with floor plan manager mainly, and I I do have some understanding about Fiori, uh, but not up to the mark. But I have worked with mainly floor plan manager, and in floor plan manager, I tried to uh, maintain the UI framework for MDG data governance. So basically, we brought those custom fields on UI. We we created a different conditions through the feeder class implementation, which is feeder class field property activities and etc. and many others. Then definitely they will stop you here and they will say uh, counter question, that is what kind of activity you have done in feeder class level. So you can say that in feeder class level, basically, uh, we deal with feeder class to validate our data, to bring a certain logic in our UI, like to make certain field mandatory, to make certain field particularly custom field. Standard field, anyhow, it is in place already. Even the standard field also you can manipulate, that we have seen. Mainly custom field, if required, then we can definitely maintain through the logic. And then again, they must say, but that, let's say mandatory, right? Mandatory, you can also make it from data model. Then you can say, look, there is a difference. If I make certain field mandatory from data model, and if I make certain field mandatory from what it call UI, there is a huge difference. Hello, hello.
We can hear you, Aditya.
Okay. So till last, what you hear me? Because I found myself mute,
You
muted.
were saying making things mandatory in data model versus UI, and that's where.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Thanks, thanks. Okay, okay. No, I just suddenly found myself muted, so I thought I was talking and what happened? Anyway, so let's continue. So right, so they can tell you, look, you can also make the field mandatory from data model. Then the biggest difference between making some field through the data model or making some field mandatory, I'm just taking example of mandatory by the way, through UI is through UI feeder class implementation, you can make some condition with like based on a certain change request type, let's say ZMAT01 or YMAT01 or Z supplier or Y supplier. So based on a specific change request type, you can make certain custom field or standard field mandatory, invisible, read only, everything, whatever you want to make certain field value as a F4 value. Even they will say, okay, you have already the search help option. Why you are Yes, search help obviously we can use. We are not ruling it out, but logically also through feeder class implementation we can make it. Okay, so that is the biggest difference is we can put a condition based on a CR type, based on certain condition. If the change material type is, let's say, XYZ, then only it will behave like this. Not for all the cases, but if you maintain the configuration at the data model level, no matter whatever the change request type is, it will be mandatory. Okay, so that's the reason. So that is the difference between feeder class implementation and other configuration. Then they will say that how have you ever worked with like adaptation? You can say yes, adaptation. We know the concept, but we would say that using adaptation is a one option, but also we can make the particular activity through programmatically. But obviously, adaptation means what? Adaptation means, let's say you want to hide some UIBB for a certain change request type. So that you can do by using the adaptation. Okay. So that is also one of the things. So till UI, I just explained. I'm not going further. So this is the way you can, uh, express yourself. Then by that time, your interviewer will get some confidence on you that okay, at least he has understanding about MDG. The next is please explain the out of box configuration. Definitely, this question they are not going to ask you. I just put it here intentionally. So basically, out of box configuration means uh, mm, they might means there is a rare case, honestly speaking, but they can ask you that before we start anything on MDG data model, do you know what are the configurations we need to look into? Probably at the basis level, but do you have any understanding on that? Then you can say yes, the configurations understanding I do have, and that is to like business function activation, then webbed pro services activation, and then BC set configurations. So these are all a list of out of box configurations, authorizations. So those things we need to figure it out based on a different model. So definitely, time to time, SAP has released different run book for that. So we just need to follow that run book and need to complete that activity. Then they might say that what is the purpose of doing that activity? The simple answer is the purpose is if I will not perform business function activation, I will not get the data model. If I will not activate the material related business function, I will not get that data model. If I will not activate the webbed pro services for material or supplier, the respective UI will not be available for material and supplier. So that's the main reason to have that configuration. The next is why BC set configuration is required. So BC set configuration is required. It is a part of out of box configuration. Business configuration set is basically in this BC set configuration, there are a lot many things which cover. Like uh, if I have a let's say I have a specific business configuration set that contains change request time, that contains workflow number, at least the standard numbers, that contains the workflow status or CR status. Okay, so these are all things it contains. So Those details are very much required in the MDG process in order to, particularly to create some workflow process. So if that is not here, then it is not possible. So this is the importance of BC set. Again, this question nobody is going to ask you. So 5 and 6, hardly any chance. Now, what is the difference between three different active versions of data model? This is one of the question. This is a very simple question, but I have seen most of the interviewer ask this question. So we have three things. One is same, another one is different, and another one, the third one is none. So let me show you. If you go to MDG, IMG, general settings, data model. So here, active version, same, different, and none. So what is the difference between these three? Same means the respective data model is active. Different means at some point of time it was active, but now it has been changed something or update something, but it is just saved but not activated. And none is just it has been created, probably newly created, and it has been just saved, not activated. Okay, so this is the different active versions we have. What is the significance of having adjust staging area? So adjust staging area, why it is necessary? So whenever particularly you add some custom field in the data model, the backend staging table needs to be also synchronized. So that's what it is required to maintain the adjust staging area. Okay. So adjust staging area is nothing but the backend staging table needs to be synchronized with the data model custom fields, categorically custom fields, because anyhow standard fields are there. So we need not to talk about the standard field. What is the significance of having access and handler class? I will come to that question because it is required another chapter to enter. Please explain the different types of relationships with the example. Yes, this question also you may face, but chances are less, but you may face. Relationship. So what are the different relationships we have? We have a referencing, we have leading, we have qualifying, and foreign key. Mainly we use three relationship type, that is referencing, qualifying, and leading. So leading, if I start with, so let me just switch to the discussion sheet. So here we have leading. So leading is nothing but it is related to those entity types. First of all, relationship impact entity types. It doesn't impact directly. It does not have any connection with the entities, because entities are within the entity types. Okay, and the relationship always we maintain with the entity types, not entities. And leading is those entity types are the leading entity types when they are in a relation with some other entity type. Mostly based on the situation, we will say they are in a leading relationship. So let's say material, BP header, these are all leading entity type. That means without this entity type, it is not possible to create the material master, or it is not possible to create the a business partner. So that's what it is, a leading entity type. They contain very important entities like the basic information of BP or the basic information of material. Similarly, referencing. Referencing means like directly to refer to certain entity type. Okay, so we have seen in our example the carrier ID and currency, they are in a referencing relations. Okay, so where we have a direct pointing, so that is the referencing. Qualifying is one of the example which I have given during the discussion. Like you have a material like a biscuit, the kind of characteristics you might have for biscuit as a material, definitely for crude oil the characteristics will change, right? So definitely based on that, you need to define your relations with the uh, other entity types. So that is nothing but the qualifying. So basically, based on uh, one entity, the other entity gets impacted. So that is something which is a qualifying. And the foreign key is like it's a foreign key relations, straightforward. So that is a foreign key relationship for the entity types. But I don't think so. They will ask this question directly, but they might ask you just to check if you have ever worked with that. Next is the different storage type. Different storage type is, you can say, uh, obviously by description, it is not possible to remember. So what is possible to remember, that is like type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. And if you go by the description, type 1 is nothing but the leading type. Type 4 is like always follow type 1. Type 3 is basically those entity types which values are coming from the domain level. And type 2 are such kind of types which rarely used for MDG framework uh, because uh, this type of entity type values does not bother about the MDG process, change request process categorically. Okay. So these are all different uh, storage type. This helps to understand what are the required steps involved. Yeah, I just talked about that. What is the significance of doing SMT mapping? I just said it is a mapping between the source and target. So if I have some field in MDG ZZ test, field, this is the field name, not value, name. And the same field name we define in target ECC system like this, then I need to map them in SMT mapping. Otherwise, during the replication will get fail because the moment this field value will land ECC, it will not identify that which field it will go and set. Okay. Then next is how many different approach we can take to extend the data model. So that is a flex mode and reuse mode. Same question in a different fashion. What are the minimum processes are required to maintain master data? That is also a kind of a flex mode, and reuse mode could be one of the answers. Difference between change business activity and change request. Business activity is the behind entity of change request. So basically, change request is the frontline entity. What one end user can see. The behind change request, you have change request type because there are different types: create, change, mark for deletion, block unblock, mass processing, etc. And behind this, you have business activity. So business activity is nothing but carrying the soul of the process, whether it will be for creation, whether it will be for update, whether it will be for block unblock. So that particular process soul it will carry. Okay. So that is nothing but a business activity. Then significance of activate type linkage. The significance of activate type linkage is we can define the sequence of like let's say I'm trying to update the or I'm trying the material master data process. So the initial screen and then the change request type, because we have a multiple initial screen FPM configurations over the period of time. Similarly, we have a different FPM configurations for the change request main screen. I mean, then which screen I need to use? Which screen is necessary? Because over the period of time, every screen having a bunch of UIBBs. So based on your requirement, your customer requirement, you have to uh, pick the configuration ID for the uh, FPM configuration. So in activate type linkage, basically you provide that sequence, that first initial screen and then followed by the next navigation screen for the main screen of change request. So for this sequence, we need to use this activate type linkage. Please explain the UI configuration in MDG for material master. Anyway, like UI configuration is very straightforward. Like if you are adding some custom field, you need to go to the respective material master UI. You can identify under which UIBB you need to add that particular field. Go to the respective UIBB layout screen, and there you need to just add the respective field. And if it is necessary to add additional feeder class, which definitely not required until you create a new UIBB. For new UIBB, it will be required to create a new feeder class. This is the way. What is the difference between the deep copy and enhancement? Deep copy and enhancement is just like you have AC38 program. Okay, so one executable ABAP program, and that executable ABAP program, you have a two-way. One way is you can copy that program, make it ZZ. It's a standard program. Make it ZZ, and then you can customize. You can edit. Another way is you can create some enhancement, right? So that is nothing but, so deep copy is nothing but a copy of the standard object, and in enhancement is nothing but the enhancement of a existing one. Next is what kind of UI field property you have worked and how you managed to develop the same. Please explain complete process. Okay, I just talked about, like, we have a field property activities for different scenarios. Okay, so like create some field mandatory, grayed out, to validate some field, to create some F4 values, to create to bring some URL, like if I want to write something like hello world, or if I want to put some URL in my process or in my screen rather. So that everything can be possible through the feeder class. Okay. How to add new custom field in UI, how to make that field F4 help available. What is the difference with, okay. So till I think here it is about what we discussed so far. So any question so far before I move to the next topic? Okay, fine. So now I'm starting workflow modeling. Now listen to me very carefully. Workflow is a very important chapter, okay? Because everything we discussed so far, it is just the beginning. The real game happens here. Your entire data processing part will complete once workflow will complete. Okay, so that's what workflow is, a very, very important chapter. So now in the workflow, what kind of workflow we use? Basically, we use the rule-based workflow. So basically, there are two things. One is BRF plus, another one is the workflow. Okay, so let's better instead of wasting time with explanation theoretically, let's go and create some requirement and then jump to create that demonstration. Now, let's say my requirement is I want to create three different level like requester, verifier, and approver. Three different levels. And what is going to happen? Requester will submit. Requester will submit the change request. The change request will go to the verifier. Verifier will approve or reject whatever based on the situation, will act on it. So if it is approved, then it will go to the next level. If it is reject, then it will go back to the requester again. Similarly, approver also will have the couple of actions in the hand, that is approve and reject. So if approve, then the process gets complete, and if reject, then again go back to the requester. Why for rejection every time we are sending back to the requester? The reason is requester is the owner of the request. Without his concern, we cannot change anything in the request. Okay, so that's what every time anything rejected, that will go back to the requester. That is the ideal situation. Now you can say that no, my company is not really doing that. Rather, they are saying that no, whenever the approver will reject, it must go to the verifier first. Okay. Then if verifier reject, then it will go to the requester. Yes, that is also fine. Okay. So whatever you want, we can make it accordingly through the rule-based workflow. So this is the process. If I want to create through the rule-based workflow, then what are the things I need to do? So let's go to the system. Just ensure. So let's say I will take material itself. Now I will go to process model workflow. Then under the workflow, these are all different activities like activate type, event type, linkage. If I quickly just to walk through. So basically, as we know so far that we use the workflow template. Workflow template is nothing but it is a kind of a backend template which helps to create this rule-based workflow from our end. So it's like a using as a backbone. Okay. So then configure workflow task. So basically configuration of the workflow task and everything, it will be already in place. We need not to do anything on this, but still I'm going to show you. So this is the MDG, and under MDG we have application framework, and beside application framework we have basically the whole process like data model, persistent phase, that means SMT mapping, then workflow rule based BRF plus rule, then integrations, replication, basically replication or data load, then object processing, APIs, so basically data validations and derivations, mass change, mass create, consolidation, etc. These are all. So basically it's a whole MDG framework. Okay. Now if I go to assign agents, in the earlier versions, or rather beginning versions, we need to look into every task and everything, but now it's not required. The moment you like you purchase the license and complete the out of box configuration, everything will be available for you. So now these are all different activities. Like, for an example, synchronized system method, that means email notification. Then let's say get agent group. That means when someone is submitting or approving the change request, it will go to the next level. So that next level agent identification, so that activity. Then let's say I'm just randomly talking about. Okay. Then let's say parallel request. Okay, parallel request. Activate change request. And then process change request. So these are all different tasks which happens or which execute uh, at some point of time in the process, right? So that is already defined, whether it is a background task or whether it is a foreground task. What is the individual task number? The task number is a unique number. So these are all things already configured, as I mentioned. No need to take anything into the count. Now, actions. So these are all different workflow actions like approve, reject, resubmit, withdraw, activate, send for revision, etc. So normally whatever the actions are provided by SAP, it's more than sufficient. Okay. But if anything required, obviously we can create it, but I don't think so. Anything will be required. Now, change request step types and actions. Now here, okay, let's intentionally, I'm just keeping this particular topic in park because otherwise you will not understand what exactly the step type is. Let me first define the rule-based workflow, and then you will come to know. Then I will come back to this. Okay, so I'm directly moving to the rule-based workflow. In the rule-based workflow, first define the change request steps for rule-based workflow. Okay, before that, I need to see which change request type I can able to use it. So whether I have something like YMAC01, I don't have. So let's create. So I will just simply copy all. Just waiting to get it copied. Okay. So now it is now copied from the standard. Save it. I'm just simply save it. You must careful about the TRs. So this is the entity type and create material. So this is the change request type. I'm going to use it. Yes. So rule-based workflow, change request type. So now, the first, what is asking? The asking is whatever the possible steps you are having, those steps you need to define here. Okay. So that is the first thing. Now you may say that these are all steps I have. So I would say yes. Then accordingly define those steps in this particular point. So now let me CR type. 00. 00 is nothing but the processing or initial processing, whatever you give the name, doesn't matter. Key, whether it is any key step, no, it's nothing is like everything, every step is important, but we will not make it anything key or validations, because anyhow, programmatically we will maintain if any validations or anything is required. Okay, so we will not use this, not required. Now, what is the next? The next is we SAP provide the open window for the CR type for a workflow to define, that is 90 to 99, that window. Now you may say that, look, my process is very complex and quite lengthy, and that window is not sufficient for me. Okay, if that window is not sufficient, then you can choose something from 00 to 89. Okay, so but the first thing which you need to do, that is better to go with the change request type with the available window which we have, that is 90 to 99. So 90. So 90 is nothing but, so 00 is nothing but your requester. This is the starting point. The moment you submit, your workflow start. The next is the verifier. So 00 is nothing but verifier. Okay. Now, so when the workflow start, the moment you submit the change request, then only the workflow start, not before. Keep in mind, your workflow start the moment you submit the change request. Okay. Then a verifier, it will go. So this is verifier. Then next, approver. Approver. Then what next? Next is 92. So 92 could be, let's say, reject. Once you reject, then what happens? That your change request return to the requester. Now, returning the change request, when you are talking or when theoretically you are explaining, you can explain very easily. But how you will give a instruction to system, how system will come to know that the moment someone will reject it, I need to go back or I need to send back to the requester. For understanding for the system, in order to understand for the system, we need to define a separate CR step for revision. Okay, for revision. Now, next is 93. Now, 93, I can say activation. Activation because approve, and finally active, right? So activation is also one of the item or one of the activity which we can utilize as a CR type. Next one is rollback. Why rollback? Let's say the verifier or approver reject, it go back to the requester. Now requester can resubmit it or can withdraw it. If it is withdraw, then the entire change and its relative details will be removed from the system. So that's what it is required to have 94. 94 is rollback. Okay. Now next, once everything is done, then gets activated, The moment you get activated, there will be a email notification. So there will be one notification to the requesters, email notification, and then you have 99, which is nothing but the complete. Okay, 99 is nothing but the complete. Now you can ask me, then what about the number which is not going to use? That's fine. Whatever the process wise you need, you can use it. In future, if it is required, you can extend it. Uh, so, like, it's not a problem if there is still some gap. Okay, okay, you just utilize whatever you need it. So always 00 is nothing but processing, which is nothing but the submission step, and 99 is nothing but the complete step. Then in between, whatever the steps you have, that's purely depends on project to project. Okay, save it. These are all I can see. They are storing under the customizing request. So we have two requests. We already spoke about workbench request and customizing request. Okay. Anyway, so customizing means it's completely a new process, a new object rather. So now define service name. No, this one I will come next chapter, not now, because as I mentioned that this chapter workflow modeling, the next chapter validations and derivation, it is a continuation of this chapter, of this workflow chapter. Rather, it is treating as a separate chapter. We must say that this chapter is purely depend on this chapter. Okay. So in the next chapter, we will talk about this, not now. So then next is configure rule-based workflow. See, the problem for me is, in MDG or the way SAP has defined the process, they given the whole process over here, one after another. But I need to segregate the things for your understanding. Otherwise, you will not understand. Everything will be mixed up. So that's what I need to intentionally park certain things, then reach some point and then recall them again. So otherwise, it's very difficult for you. Okay, the change request type is YMAT01 and continue. So if there is any existing, I can probably use that. Okay, so this is the rule-based workflow where the first three items which you see, that is nothing but the BRF plus application, which is related to the BRF plus. And the last two items what you see, that is related to the workflow. So BRF plus I will come later. First talk about the workflow. Now go to the decision table. Now decision table is everything. Whatever the decisive factor we will have in the process, like requester to verifier, verifier to approver, approver to complete. So this is the decisive factor. So this decisive factor is basically controlled by this decision table. Okay. So in interview, definitely they will ask you whether you deal with the decision table. If yes, then what are the different decision tables we have? So mainly we have three settings of decision table. One is single value decision table. Single value decision table is nothing but in this particular table, you can define the entire process. Whatever you have the process, starting from requester to verifier to approver to complete. The whole process has to be defined here in the single value decision table. User agent decision table is something where you define the user driven activities. Like for an example, verifier and approver is clicking on approve or reject button. That is one user driven action. Okay, so that is something which we will lock under the or define under the user agent decision table. The third one is the non-user agent decision table. Non-user agent decision table is nothing but all the non-user activity, like for an example, activation, email notification, then rollback activity. So these are all activity. There will be no human interaction is required. Rather, system will understand and system will take the necessary steps in order to activate the data, in order to send the email to the requester, in order to roll back certain data. So everything will be the system driven rather than the user driven. So that is something which we call as a non. So those steps we need to keep it here as a non-user agent decision table. Okay. So this is the three different decision tables. Now let's go ahead with creating the single value decision table. Now there are two ways to define it. One way is either you can directly come, you can one by one. There are multiple columns we have. Not necessary that every column required, but we will only use those columns which is necessary. Otherwise, the rest of the columns we will keep it as it is. Okay. So let's say what are the columns are important. Every time you have to save it. So CR previous step. So previous step means where you are standing right now, whether before that particular position or before that step, what are the activities happened. If I want to know or understand certain things like this in my process, I can probably keep it here. The next is then previous action. So previous action, obviously, if steps are, I can keep it. Obviously, action also, I can keep it. So let's keep it, this one. Then change request priority. No, change request priority, anyhow, it's not required. We normally deal with the change request priority in a different manner, and we have categorically this case study, like based on a priority, how you identify that which change request has been violated or which change request has been meet the SLA. So regarding such kind of things, we have a case study down the line. So I'm not going to use that. Change request reason, that is also not needed, because these are all standard field of change request. That's what it appeared on the screen. Now you can ask me one thing. You can directly go to table settings and you can remove them. No, I don't want to do that, because in if I remove them, sometimes the structure get imbalanced. So then it will start, giving you some error, and then fixing it, it will create another problem. So in past I have seen, so that's what I'm not going to take it out from this. Rather, I will just keep it here. Okay, but no values will be defined. CR parent step. CR parent step is only required when the parallel workflow we will talk about. In this example, we are just talk about the simple workflow. Next example or next chapter when we'll go, we will talk about the parallel workflow. So this chapter, we will only focus the single workflow. I hope you remember what is single workflow and parallel workflow. Just walk through our previous discussion. You will remember it. So parallel agent group is by name itself, you can understand it's a parallel. condition alias is needed. Condition alias is like uh, a useful column just to define the steps, like in in which order the steps will execute. So that order will maintain by the condition alias. Then new change request step, yes, that is needed. Then new CR status, that is also needed. Anything else? I don't think so. So let's save this and let's continue. So as I mentioned, I was trying to say, like either you can directly come here and start creating it like this. Other way is you can maintain through Excel and you can import it, import from Excel. Okay. So if you go and if you just keep that Excel in your local machine or local desktop, and then you can import it. But anyway, I don't have any Excel, so I will just continue with this. So previous action. So so first request and submit. So first the things has to be submit in order to trigger the workflow. So the first thing is 00, which is a initial processing. Previous action, no, this submit itself is an action. So what is going to happen? The condition alias. So this is the first step, execution step. New change request step is verifier. So verifier means I guess 90 I have given 90. Change request status. Whether I have any suitable status. Otherwise, I will create my own status. No, I don't see I have any suitable status. Let me create quickly. So let's go back to the process model change request, edit status of change request. So let's say create to be verified by verifier. Okay, y to be approved by approver, y3 roll back, then y4 what else I need? Okay, let's keep this much. If necessary, I will again come and add it. So yes, permitting processing we just talked about. So no permission means I cannot make any changes in there. So I will make it execution of changes. So at any point of time the change is possible. So just keep this. Okay. Now go back. Now if you click on F4 here, definitely the chances are less to reflect immediately. So what you need to do, just save it obviously, and again go back to the single value decision table. Now you try to see, here we have, okay, save it. Next Next is, so that means the request reach to the verifier. Now verifier will pick this request. So verifier will pick this request now. So 90. Now action. What kind of actions possible? Approve or reject. So if it is approve, then what happens? So actions, standard actions we will use, which is approve 03. Condition alias step number. So this is step number 2. New change request. New change request is once it is approved successfully, it will go to the next level, which is approver. So I guess 91. 91. Similarly, the status you can give. I know the number, so I'm directly entering the number instead of using F4. Now, next is reject. But what I will do, let me first capture all the approve case, then I will capture the reject case. Okay. So then next is approver, because approver for verifier is done. Approve for verifier is done. Now approve for approver is required. So here also 03, the condition alias 3, the new change request status, which is what happened if approver approve. If approver approve, then process is complete. Instead of complete, I would say activation. Okay, it will go for the activation. So activation and change request status. I can say to be evaluated. Save it. Okay, all approve scenario done. Now I will create all reject scenarios. Again, verifier. Next is the 04. Then condition alias 4. Then new change request status, which is what happened. If it is reject, then it will go for the revision because it will go back to the requester. So that process we define as a revision. Then for revision, is there any suitable status to be revised? Similarly, for approver, again rejection scenario. Then condition alias 5. Then what happened? Again rejection. be revised as well. Done. And then what next? Then continue. So once this is done, so revision. Now let's take the revision in place. So once it reached to the requester will have two options. First option is resubmit. He can correct whatever the mistake happened and then resubmit. The other way is withdraw. He can withdraw the process. That is the another way. So I would say change request type is here 92 revision. Now revision will have two things. One is the resubmit, which is a standard action also. So now if it is resubmit, then what is going to happen? Again, it will go back to the verifier, then approver, then the same cycle will continue. So what I will do, instead of giving the new number, I will say the condition alias number 1, because the same cycle will start from the beginning, right? So that's what instead of giving a separate number, I would give 1, because our first process is that only. If you see the first step, that is the same process, same steps I mean. Okay. So then what is the new change request type? Obviously verifier, because ultimately it's a submit, but for the second time, let's say. So same details I am maintaining, because otherwise there will be a discontinuity. So here another situation will be the withdraw. So here I will say withdraw. Okay. Now withdraw is a completely new step. So I need to make it the number. Now which one? The new change request step will be rollback. Rollback means once you withdraw, then definitely that change request will remove from the staging table and from the MDG framework as well. Okay, because it's not required anymore. So I think I have already, I guess. Okay. Now once this is done, now the thing is, from after this particular step, I can obviously maintain the email notification. But email notification is not part of this chapter discussion, rather it's a next chapter discussion. So I will just park it email notification 1. So let's move to the okay. So now if I just expunge the email notification step, then what next? Next will be activation, because once everything done, then I will just now complete the process. So activation. Now activation action is activation successful. 31. This is again a new step. Activation successful, and here the new step will be complete. And let me take some relevant status. Final check approved. Okay. So this is for the successful completion. Now after the rollback, what is also then also process will complete, but that is final check rejected, right? Rollback means all the data which you are trying to create, so that the after the withdraw, that is not needed anymore, so no further action is required. Already you have defined the action as a withdraw, and what is going to happen, it is going to be now for both case the end result is complete, but this is the final check approved, this is final check rejected. So instead of, I can give number 8, but instead of that I can also give 7, because ultimately this numbering define the new change request steps. So in that case, ultimately it is a final completions. But this final completion is little different than the previous one, and that is final check rejected. Okay, save it, and this is the single value decision table. Okay, this is the single value decision table. Any questions so far? Now you can activate it. Do you have any question regarding this? Okay, I would say let's stop today here. Okay, because it will take some time. Okay, because the process is little lengthy, not very small. So then we need to define the user agent decision table. Then we need to define the non-user agent decision table. Then we need to check some other settings. And finally, we need to define the whole process. Okay. I mean, we will execute the whole process. So let's stop today. So what are the things we have started? We basically started this one, develop rule-based workflow. And while doing this activity, we are actually crossing like a change request, step types, actions, different approval procedures through rule-based workflow. Okay. Now, different types of roles we haven't started, we will talk about later. Okay. and relative documents related to the workflow. Everything you will have available in the drive. So please go and collect those documents and just try to refer it. Uh, my example is different here. Probably the example which you can see in the reference document, that is different one. But ultimately, uh, they are talking about the same process. Okay, fine then. So if there is no question, let's stop. And next week, we will let you know when we will have the next session. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks Aditya. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Aditya.